And now, from beyond our dimension, this is the JeffMara podcast. Here's Jeff.
My guest is Ra Castaldo, a musician who was offered a deal with the devil for his soul. Ra, welcome back. It's great to have you again.
Jeff, it is a pleasure to come back on your podcast. I rarely speak about these topics that we're going to talk about tonight, but I'm doing this not just to share it with your audience because it's an interesting story, but to let people and give people warnings for some of the things that actually exist out there, and how moments in your life that you might not think is way more important what's going on. There might be some underlying spiritual warfare going on, and people need to be aware, especially if you're an artist and you're a creator, and you're out there exploring life in various ways. And I was leading a very hard life at the time, and forces scoped me out, and we're gonna get into it. But first, I think people should know that I was born. It was a very interesting birth to begin with. Not only do I come from a long line of mystics and from Italy called Strega. It's a blend of like Roman Catholicism and mysticism. But various people throughout my bloodline had a special rare birth and were born with certain abilities. And sometimes it doesn't happen for many generations. Sometimes it can happen a few times in a generation. But when I was born, my mother's water never broke. I was born still inside the caul, they call it CAUL. It's the amniotic sac. And babies that are born inside the caul, like I said, the mother's water doesn't break. They come out still with inside that pod. It's a very rare birth. And not only was I born still inside the caul, but I had the umbilical cord wrapped around my neck. They call it in caul birth with nuchal cord. Right. And my mom even told me, my mom passed in 2011, actually June 26th, 2011. It's almost 14 years to the day. But my mom had told me she remembered the day she got pregnant, right, and that I was conceived, because she was like, that was the only time I had sex that month, but it was on an eclipse. Right. So it was actually October 12th, 1977. My mother, she remembered the night because it was on the TV that there was an eclipse. And I was conceived during October 12th, 1977. My mom had an appointment 9 months to the day. July 12th, 1978 is when I was born. And my mom was having complications in the appointment, and I think they like induced the labor somehow or did something. And yeah, I was born without the water even breaking. I was still inside the whole amniotic sac. Now, some people, they're born with the caul just over their head and face, like a veil, they call it, but I was born in the whole caul, the whole pod like that. And they call it being born a caul bearer, or born behind the veil, or a mermaid birth. There's all the Naga birth in Hindu, right? They call it all these different lores about it. But usually people born this way experience a hypersensitivity to fabrics, to vibrations, touch, sound, um, light, right? Dreams, anything that has to do with harmonics and vibrations and creativity. They're very hypersensitive to things like that. And it was a very terrifying thing as a child, right?
Well, aren't people who are born like that usually considered to be very lucky?
Yeah, it's a blessing and an omen in many ways. It's seen both ways. It could be a blessing and it could be an omen. It could be both, right? Depends what you get polarized towards in your life, I guess, as well, right? But so last time I was on your show, I talked about how I had a near-death experience when I was 9 years old. So it was a frightening thing when I was a child, because when I would maybe be hyperactive and go to sleep at night, faces would appear to me in the room, auditory things would happen, things like that. So after I had a near-death experience, it was just amplified way more, right? And as a teenager, it was hard for me to process some of the things and some of the feelings that I was having, some of the things that I was experiencing, right? And I started to realize during the times I was being creative, playing music, writing music, it felt like I was tapping into another realm at times as well. Like I was on some sort of galactic stage. And when I would let just time disappear and I would be creative, whether you're painting or whether you're creating music, when just like time just sort of disappear and you get lost in what you're doing, I started to realize the universe was speaking to me, God was speaking to me, however you want to look at it. But I was tapping into a higher connection, and things telepathically would appear to me, and sometimes even push itself into matter in this dense realm for short periods of time. I would see certain things. And I think certain entities, it may be unstable to be this dense in this realm. They only can appear for short periods of time. That's just my speculation from what I've experienced. But as I grew older and I started to have all these experiences, it was hard for me to share it with people. A lot of people couldn't identify it. And I started to self medicate as a teenager and party and do all these things. And I come from a very traditional Italian family, so I didn't blend with my parents at that time in my life. Right. So I found on myself on the streets of New York City as a teenager. I got in a lot of trouble, but I ended up finding, my tribe. I found a band. I found people that I gravitated towards, and I started finding my creative force. But when you're getting partying and you're getting high with certain things at that age, it's hard for you to really be a grounded individual and understand some of the things that you're experiencing. People started to die from overdoses in the 90s when I graduated high school in 95. And just I was with a band traveling for a little while. And what led me actually to go out to California, where I had this experience that we're going to talk about, and these spiritual experiences I had, is I went through a whole bunch of chaos in New York, and I had the safety of sometimes my mom letting me come back home, and it was I needed to grow up. I couldn't be rescued anymore in many ways, and I knew that, right? So there came a time where I was just like, all right, I'm just gonna pack up and just leave, right? So I just need to change my life, get out of this scene, because literally my bass player had died from a heroin overdose at the time. We were playing all over the East Coast. I came back to New York and I felt like I was gonna start getting into some of the same old patterns again. So I literally had my acoustic on my back, Jeff, and I told my mom I was going to 7-Eleven. I had $150 in my pocket. And this is right before 9/11, September 8th, 2001. This happened, right? Right before 9/11 hit New York City. So I told my mom I was going to 7-Eleven. Instead, I went right to 42nd Street in Manhattan to the Port Authority, and I got a bus ticket for as far as I can go. I would have needed a boat to go any further. I went to 16th and Long Beach in California. Right, it took me 3 nights and 4 days, and I went there with just the clothes on my back and my guitar. I had only a few dollars in my pocket when I arrived. And on the streets of California, I started busking. Busking is where you're playing music or performing for some sort of money on the street. Like I had my guitar case there, and I was making like $100 a day and building crowds a lot of times. And you guys can see my channel on YouTube. Some of the stuff I write still, but like 20 years ago, some of the clips in my band you guys can check out as well. So like I'm I'm good at spontaneously creating stuff, like when playing as well. So like I would come up with music right on the spot and play it. And I started to be really known in the area. Now at the time I didn't realize even that Long Beach is on the 33rd parallel. Right? A lot of mysterious stuff happened on the 33rd parallel. If people are know their religious history, they know from the book of Enoch, one of the hidden books from the Bible, that the fallen angels, the watchers, we call them in Italian the Gregori, right? The Gregori, they're known also as the Irian fallen angels, right? It was supposedly the other 33rd parallel in Lebanon is Mount Hermon, is where the fallen angels, 200 watchers, were said to fall and arrive in ancient times that Enoch talks about in the first book of Enoch. And you guys can see that the 33rd parallel is very sacred. I mean, near that area, you also have so many dolmens. the ancient area of Bashan and King Og, where you have hundreds of stone circles and dolmens in those areas all around the 33rd parallel, right? So if you take that 33rd parallel across, it goes right through Los Angeles, like into Long Beach, right through the park and the area that I had these experiences. And I didn't know that at the time. So I started always playing around in this park in downtown Long Beach. I was always in the Long Beach. So if people know Long Beach, California, I was living basically. I eventually got a little apartment there with some of my friends that I found out there. But when I first arrived there, I was basically sleeping outside the first couple of days, couple of weeks, right? So when I always stayed within like Fifth and Pine, Fifth and Cedar, down to Cesar Chavez Park. The Cesar Chavez Park is where it's on First and Golden Avenue, and this is where the 33rd parallel, and that park has a lot of Fibonacci spiral design right in that park as well, right? So I was always like playing music around there and around Pine Avenue, where a lot of the fancy stores are and restaurants. I was always playing around that area, Fifth and Pine. I had a apartment at Fourth and Cedar for 2 years in Long Beach as well. I was even working at a store called No Regrets for a little while, doing promotion for them, playing in front of their store, getting people to come in their store and stuff like that. So, like I said, I'm prone to spiritual experiences and seeing other sort of things that most people don't sense. I've been doing psychic readings on people for over 30 years. I do clearings. I build products, copper and crystal and gemstone products for your mind, body, and soul. So I've been doing Reiki healing and psychic work for most of my life. So I'm prone to having certain forces be a magnet. I'm a magnetic person my whole life. I've always had been a magnetic person in school, sports. I've always had eyes on me my whole life, whether I liked it or not. You know, it's just a thing. And I always wear a hat because I really don't like it being on camera either. Right. So it's a double-edged sword sometimes, like, because I wanted to be a musician, but I didn't really like being in front of crowds, right? Too much. But so while I was out there, I noticed Long Beach has a very dark feel to the area, right? There's a lot of weird activity happening in this town. You have a town where there's a lot of um, there's a lot of gay people, there's a lot of gangs, there's a lot of mixed everything going on, and it's all mixing. A lot of people are doing like crystal meth and crazy stuff, and it's a lot of dark energy going around these parks. And I started to really sense this darkness in this area, and I think the darkness started to look back at me. And I could tell you a whole bunch of spiritual stories that I had out there that it would blow your mind. But let's lead up to this night that you're talking about with the devil, right? So I was going through a little bit of a depression the night before, and it was 2 nights in a row that something happened like this. So the night before this happened, I was cutting through the alleyways to go to where I was living, and I walked into the alleyway, and I was like feeling like I should go back to New York at the time. I had no family out there, nobody I knew out there. I was making a life out there. I had nobody to rescue me out there, nobody out there, you know. And I was going through a little depression. Like I wanted to see my mom. My mom had cancer at the time, and I wanted to go back home. And I remember walking into this alleyway, Jeff, and my grandmother, who had passed a decade before or more, her perfume engulfed me. And I mean, I walked into this alleyway, Jeff, and her, the smell of her perfume and it was in my hair, it was in every fiber of who I am. It just went through me. And I even said, Nani, like in the alleyway, like that's who we call my grandmother, Nani, right? So I literally just said it out loud. And then right after I said that, I looked over and it was like, heaven was shining on it. There was a lamppost, somebody's back door in the alleyway. There was a lamppost with a light, and it was shining on this book, right? And it was a book that they were throwing out on top of their garbage can. And I picked up the book. It said Harmonics of Evolution. And I looked at the binding. The binding even said Ra on it, RA. It was from like 1906, the book, right? I opened it up. The author's name was like Francis Huntley or something. I have it somewhere upstairs still. But I opened it up. The first line of the first chapter, there is no death. I was like, whoa. All right. So I grabbed this book and I just took it. So, and it like got me out of what I went through that night. The very next night, about the same time, because I used to go to the store, No Regrets, and I would leave about the same time. It was like a little after midnight, like almost 1 in the morning, same time of night. And I never play music on the streets at this night. Never. Same time the next night, I'm walking through the alleyway, that same alleyway, right near Caesar Chavez, across from Caesar Chavez Park. I was walking up the alleyways across from Caesar Chavez Park, right? Because No Regrets is at Fifth and Pine. I walked down Fifth Avenue all the way to Caesar Chavez Park. I was going down that area, right across from Caesar Chavez Park. All of a sudden, I get this urge to write a music, like to write a song. Like it just, I had this urge. It was in my head, a melody, everything. Like I was like, oh shit, I gotta do this. And I couldn't play that late at my apartment. So I went to the park, right? I went to the park that late at night, right? And I started playing out in the park over there, right? And I'm playing my heart out. I was singing, playing my heart out. Now, before I tell you what happened, I got to tell you about this guy that I would pass every day because it's a key part of this story. There's a guy that would stand in front of. There's another park right up the street called Lincoln Park, ironically, right? I'm not sure if that's where the band actually got their name from in Long Beach. I'm not sure, but it's on Third and Long Beach Avenue. It's called Lincoln Park. A lot of homeless people hang out there, right? So there was this guy, there's a Burger King across the street from Lincoln Park. And there was this homeless man that used to stand in front of Burger King every day. He used to have a cart with him, looked all disheveled, right? He was all big, scraggly beard, all disheveled. Like he looked like he was probably an alcoholic. And I had asked him a few times, yo, you want a burger? You want something? And he'd be like, just growl at me. And never, at this time I was in Long Beach for about 2 years. I stayed another couple of months, almost 3 years. But I was in about 2 years of me passing this guy every day. Never spoke a word to me, Jeff. Never spoke a word, just grunted. All right. So now we're at this night where I'm playing almost 1 o'clock in the morning in this park. Right. I'm playing all by myself. I'm singing. I didn't hear nobody walk up. Nothing. All of a sudden, I smell a cigar. Right. And I had my eyes closed for a minute. I was playing guitar. Now I'm sitting on the ground with like in meditate. You know when you're sitting with your legs folded in front of you on the floor and the guitar's on your lap, almost like what they used to call Indian style, right? All right. So I was sitting in that position with the guitar on my lap on the ground, leaning with my back against the bench in the park. All of a sudden, I smell a cigar and I open my eyes and I see feet are standing in front of me. I didn't look up because he was like a couple of inches from me, so I couldn't see all the way up to see who it was yet. I just saw feet and the pants, but I saw dress shoes and dress pants. So I thought it was somebody, must have been out all night and they were dressed up. They were about to give me some money, right? That's what I originally thought. So I still continue to play. I haven't looked all the way up to see the face of the person yet. So I'm playing guitar and I was singing, and all of a sudden the person starts to speak, Jeff. And simultaneously, as the person started to speak, I looked up to see the person's face. And when I looked up to see the person's face, it was that bum that used to be all scraggly and disheveled. Never heard him speak a word. He just grunted at me. Now he's dressed up in a suit. His beard is all nice and trimmed. It's his same blue. He had always his nice blue eyes. It was his same blue eyes, his same face, everything. Same guy. But his beard was trimmed and his hair was combed back and he was wearing like a nice suit. And he was speaking to me, Jeff, and he was speaking to me so clear and concise and intelligent. And basically this is the gist of what he said. Because granted, this was in 2002, later 2002 now, almost 2003. All right, I went out there at the beginning of the end of 2001, but I was 2 years out there, so I think this was like around 2003. Now, so when he started to speak, I nothing really came over me too much at that time, but I didn't. it wasn't until later on that I really started to realize the magnitude of what I went through. But like when he first started to speak and I looked up and I saw it was him, he was speaking clear and so intelligent, and I can only paraphrase because it's been so long, but the gist of what he said, Jeff, was, I've seen you around. I've seen you around here. I seen you because he's seen in that park that he was always in front of, this bum. I've fought in that park in those 2 years. I've had to fight people try to steal my guitar from me several times. I've had to fight in that park. People tried to jump me and rob me before in that park. A lot of things have taken place over those 2 years with me out there, right? He literally was saying, I've seen you around. I see you know how to handle yourself, and then you know how to play that thing really well. I recently came into money, and I'm going to open up a club. I want you to come play at my club. You'll basically have anything you've ever wanted. All you got to do is say yes, right? Just like that. And at that point in my life, bro, I was like one step from homeless, right? I needed something that would be like the ultimate job, right? But something, I don't know if it was my nanny from the night before, who she came and guided me through this. But and the kind of person I am like, one of a few things should have taken place after that guy said that. I either would have said, hell yeah, bro, I'm in, or it would have been like, bro, what the hell is the matter with you, you crazy man? What did you friggin' get a suit? Like, get the hell out of here, right? Or chase him away, right? There's a few things, but something calm came over me, Jeff. And I grew up in martial arts. I did a few fights of professional Muay Thai. I'm very limber. So like when he said that, something calm took over me, and I literally went from sitting in Indian style like that. And a lot of people, when they get up, they have to like use their arms to get up off the ground. But like I'm very limber, so I just popped up like a cat with my legs, holding the guitar right in his face. And something calm just came over me, and I was like, sir, thank you, but no thank you. And I sat back down and I started playing my heart out again, just playing. And I looked back up at his face, and I saw the most evil, unworldly, otherworldly red, like a storm brewing in his eyes, red. It like was just a storm of red, blue in his like just it was like unnatural red, right in his eyes, and like the most anger you've ever seen. And I closed my eyes again, and I looked back up, and he was gone. Right now, fast forward a couple of days, and I seen this guy back in front of Burger King. I was passing on the bus, and I seen him back in front of Burger King, all disheveled looking again, right? I get off the bus and I run up to him, you mother effer, screaming at him, right? What was the matter with you the other night? And Jeff, he's just looking at me, and he's like, "Rah," growls at me again. Like he didn't know what I was talking about, right? So I walked away pissed off, and then I actually turned around and came back and was like, it was you, mother effer. It was you. Look at your face. Like your beard is still trimmed. Like it's still like your beard's all trimmed nice still. And he was feeling his beard like in confusion as I was walking away, right? And then I never saw him again after that. He disappeared from that spot a few days later, and I ended up coming back to New York like about 4 or 5 weeks after that, and I hadn't gone back near that park, so I don't know what if he stayed around that area or what. But over the years, I don't really have too many answers about that experience, but I know that I've been battling forces like that, and I've been guided to fight forces like that most of my life. And my family's been about cleansing the collective consciousness of communities and breaking spells and witchcraft that people have been cursed by, right? So it might have been some sort of contract for my soul. And that day, I truly feel, I don't know whether it was some sort of walk-in that took possession of this homeless man, or if it's some sort of entity that appears as a homeless man in disguise. But it definitely wasn't just some homeless man that came into money that night and was opening up a club. It was much more than that. It was spiritual in nature, my friend.
Do you think the temptation was more about being desperate for money or the possibility of being famous? Which is more powerful?
That's a good question. See, I never wanted, I'm not, my wife can attest to this, and people that know me really well, I'm not a person who goes after money, right? I care more much about the moment that I'm in and the time. And that's one of my problems because I don't prepare for the future too much, right? I'm very spontaneous, and it's hard when you have a family and you have children, but um, I'm trying now because I am a father to try to get better with the preparing for the future. But been very spontaneous in my whole life. I don't think it's ever been about fame for me. I think it's been about touching people with my art. It's always been that. I've always, my whole life, wanted to make the room brighter, right? I've gone through a lot of trauma when I was a kid. I come from a pretty hardcore family, and I've always wanted to make the room a better place, even when I was in class. I always tried to make the room brighter, lighter, joke around a little bit, make the teacher laugh a little bit, or, and things like that. I've always been that kind of person. So I don't think it was about that. I think certain entities got magnetized towards me and wanted to use my my abilities to for their dark ways,
Do you
right?
do you think
Suck on my energy like a vampire.
do you think that when a person like you is desperate for money, they're more susceptible to making a deal like that?
Oh, for sure, for sure, for sure. You take someone that is a street kid, that would be the most vulnerable type of person. One of the most vulnerable targets, a creative street kid, right? And you've seen this. I think this shows you that things like that out there exist, and many artists out there that you see, they might not have realized that person that showed up in their lives was that a similar entity that I met, right? It could have been just a business manager who said, "Yo, come with me. I'll take care of I'll take care of your career. I'll get you the best things. I'll get you the best connections. I'll get you the best thing." It could be as simple as that. Somebody that shows up in your life, right? Look with someone like Justin Bieber, right? Right. All of a sudden, they were like, he met this group, this organization who wanted to buy his whole music catalog. He sold it for like $200 million or whatever it was. And then after he did that, it seemed like some kind of entity was feeding on him, right? Like he was looked like some sort of life force was being drained from him. Like maybe he was coerced into making that deal by some sort of something that showed up in his life, and you never know. There's most most things in this physical realm, if not all, first arrive from spiritual. It comes from a thought, and it pushes into matter. It manifests, it materializes from light, from plasma. All the plasma forces in the world, the light, it pulls different particles of life together to create things, right? It rides a cosmic conveyor belt. When you have a star explode, right? Supernovas, it's throwing out proteins and calciums and all of that. And then it rides a cosmic conveyor belt of plasma until it becomes humans and earth and different things like that, right? So all of our particles we're light, right? We're light bodies, we're just more dense. We're just more solidified light. So we're connected to all of this. We're connected to all of these other realms. It's connected to the spinal current of who we are.
Do you think that there are some famous musicians out there who have made a deal?
Oh, 100%. 100%, Jeff. 100%. Yeah. I don't think these stories like Robert Johnson and all of these stories that you hear from the past, like blues players making a deal with the devil, I think it's totally possible. I mean, in like I guess it's called like hoodoo or voodoo. They have like Papa Legba, right? He's well known entity that even they used in that movie Crossroads with Ralph Macchio in 1987. I saw when I was like 9 or 10 years old. That's a very similar story to what I went through. When I see that movie now, it gives me goosebumps, right? Because Legba was summoned at the crossroads by someone playing guitar or playing harmonica, by someone playing. You summon this entity who offers you a contract basically for your soul, right? And it's not unlike the area I was in near the park, a very spiritual area, right on a certain parallel, right at the crossroads of a street.
Do
And
you?
this all of a sudden, this homeless man, and look at Papa Legba. He's even depicted as an old man sometimes with a cane, right? Very similar to what I experienced. So did I encounter Papa Legba that night? It's very possible. It's very possible.
Do you think Diddy got involved in something like this?
Yeah, look what his name is, Papa Diddy, right? Papa Legba also goes by Puff Daddy. He's known as the Puff Daddy, Papa Legba of voodoo. The voodoo Papa Legba always dresses in red with a cane, wears a key around his neck. Look it up. You can find pictures of Puff Daddy that are the exact symbolism of Papa Legba. I wouldn't put it past that some sort of entity like that made a deal with Puff Daddy a long time ago, or P Diddy.
Well, how do you think we should protect ourselves from entities in general?
Well, I would start first of all grounding every day. If people don't know how to do grounding, very simple technique. You go outside barefoot. Um, very easy to do it at this time of year. Um, Imagine your arms are like tubes, barrels, hollow, and all the bad energy, all the buildup, all of that, you're gonna let flow out of your arms and sit at the ground in meditation pose. And you're gonna let all that bad energy flow out of your hollow arms, and then push your palms down on the ground, and imagine your arms are hollow like tubes now, and all the bad energy is just flowing out of your arms. And as you push your palms down into the earth, all of the bad energy is leaving your palms, and you're going to push it deep down into the earth while you breathe out, right? Push it deep down, deeper. It's like almost like an astral dump. Like you're just dumping all the astral debris that you pick up in dream time from other people, negative energies that you pick up from people looking at you, 30 looks, people talking badly about you, different things that you encounter at work, different things that you encounter in sleep. All of that astral debris needs to be shedded off every day. So you dump all of that while you're grounding into the earth, deep down into the earth, and then leave that spot for like 24 hours. It replenishes itself, right? So grounding every day, praying is another good way. You can also build barriers with salt and crystal grids and all sorts of different work like that. So there's all sorts of things that you can do to cleanse your house every day. If people want to contact me privately, go to my website, the Mystical Spiral Store. I don't charge for advice, so you guys can hit me up and email me at my website. Um, but yeah, I mean, anytime you're creative and you're spiritual, you're gonna have attacks. You're gonna have other forces be drawn to your light. Right? There's always going to be someone trying to extinguish that light. It's up to you to battle it and and have the fuel.
Let's say hypothetically that you did make the deal, and if someone else makes a deal, can you get out of that contract? And if so, how?
I don't think I would be in credit card debt and broke. But uh, I think there is possibilities to get out of the contract if you would make. But I think it's so insidious and cunning that most people don't realize there's a contract. They don't realize that they sold their soul. Right? It's not like something where this like entity takes out a scroll and makes you sign in blood. Right? It's not like that. It's much more insidious and cunning than that. Right? So I would say most people don't realize it happened. It even transpired. And yeah, I would say that to be aware that something transpired first, you gotta crack through someone's ego. Whether it's they go through a psychedelic experience or a traumatic experience or some sort of spiritual ecstasy type, spiritual awakening moment, there's something that has to catapult you past or rocket past your ego so you can actually see clearly what's transpiring. That's why some people can't even feel the energies of crystals and things like that because their programming and their ego, they won't let them. But then let that person go through some sort of trauma or spiritual experience or some sort of psychedelic experience. And then they'll walk by a crystal shop a couple of weeks later and they'll be like, whoa, actually, I could sense something about this now. There's something different about this, right? So I think that people need to shatter their egos first to be aware of what's transpiring. And once you become aware, you could fight anything. Anything that you've got yourself into, you can get yourself out of. All right. But there's certain lines that once you cross, I don't think there is going back, you know? So maybe I'm contradicting my statement I just said there, but I think that there's certain things maybe you can get yourself out of, but once you cross certain lines, I don't think there's going back from that. You got to purify yourself in another life. Right? There's certain lines you can't cross. I do feel in this life, like murder and things like that. You just can't do that. Right? So there's certain people will cross certain lines when it comes to fame, but that wasn't the reason why I think I was a target. I don't think it was because of my yearning for fame and money. It was because I think they were yearning for my energy and my abilities and they wanted to suck on my life force. Right? Certain people, right? We only know each other from doing the podcast, but I'm one of those people where I'm full with a lot of life, right? I have a strong life force. It's hard to extinguish that light. And dark forces, they want to feed on people like that. We're magnets for those people. So that's why it's very important for us to stay healthy, stay grounded. Don't let too much rage get a hold of us, because that darkness is just waiting for us to give into it.
You already have a family history of some sort of psychic abilities. Do you think they picked up on that?
Oh, for sure. I think it's ancestral, and it follows you from incarnation to incarnation and through your ancestry, for sure. Definitely.
After you didn't take the deal, did you go back to New York?
hmm I went back maybe like 6 or 7 weeks later, a couple, like almost 2 months later. I ended up going back to New York, and my life radically changed, man. I actually, because of that experience, I gave up on music for a little while. I when I got back to New York, I started another band for a little while, and we did pretty well. And I did it until about 2005, and then right before we were about to make it to the next step, I left the band because I felt like I was gonna back. I didn't want in that music scene, and guys were upset about it, but it's what I needed. I needed to walk away from it at the time. Now I just play music for me, for my, to get my emotions out, not to make it as a rock star, because that, like you said, wanting to be a rock star, wanting to make it with music, I didn't like the forces that was around me, and I had to walk away from it.
Have you ever had any contact with ETs or seen UFOs?
Yes, I have actually videos of it as well on my channel.
Really?
Uh, Go to my playlist real quick. You could see UFO sightings, fireballs of red here in the Hudson Valley. I caught them twice on video, and I actually think it guided me towards my research into plasma and to decode a lot of the hieroglyphics and ancient writings that I've been decoding. And I didn't put the two and two together because it didn't happen like at the time, like right at the moment of the sighting. But in the coming days after the sighting, my interests and my focus on research started to radically change, and I just had urges to research and go deeply into certain topics like plasma physics, and to go to certain sites and sacred sites that are made from granite and dolmens and things like that. So I was guided, and then certain information started to come to me about hieroglyphics and ancient writings and things like that. So I definitely think it had to do. And then when I was a kid in the Hudson Valley, um, actually, I was at my cousin. My cousin is Michael Imperioli from Sopranos. I don't know if you know that.
No, I didn't.
He played Christopher on Sopranos. Yeah, so we were at his house in Brewster, New York at the time, and he grew up in Mount Vernon, but for a short time, his family moved to Brewster for a couple of years. We were at that house in the Hudson Valley in Brewster, and there was a huge friggin' chevron shaped craft that came down the street like 2 miles an hour, slow, moving silent, like it was a freaking hologram. And it came over the whole neighborhood. And then the next day, there was like frogs in the area, like dead, like in a circle. It was weird. We found frogs, but yeah. So that was the one as a kid. But while living in Middletown, I got one on encounter on. I mean, Jeff, I'm talking about. I was just about to go as a guest on somebody's pod deck. It was called podcast called the Cosmic Switchboard with James Bartley.
Mhm.
I was a guest on his podcast, and 5 minutes before I was going on his podcast, I looked out the window, and there were 7 or 8 orange reddish fireballs over my neighbor's house in formation, pulsating, completely silent. They looked like stars, but they were like reddish fireballs, right? And they were in formation, and they started to move around. So I grabbed my phone and I ran outside. At the time, it was like a BlackBerry or whatever the hell it was. I ran outside and I started to record it. I got the others moved away, and one came down right like near me, like maybe like 50 feet above the house, and it you see it in the video. It started to move around, then it morphed shape, it vibrated and pulsated and changed colors and morphed shape, and then went away. It was completely silent. And then the other time I got a recording of it, there was 3 of them over the Hudson River on the other side of the river. I mean, huge fireballs moving around. I mean, it's a much better video, the second one I got. You guys could check out my playlist, you know.
Well, let's take a look at one if you're okay with it.
Right before I look out the window and see this, I was about to be a guest on a UFO show called the Cosmic Switchboard, which host is James Bartley. He's in Australia now. So before I go to be a guest, I look out the window and I see 7 or 8 reddish white star-looking fireballs over my neighbor's house in formation. I grabbed at the time, it was like 8 or 9 years ago. I grabbed my BlackBerry phone at the time, or whatever it was. I ran outside. By the time I go outside, a majority of them moved away, but one of them came down and was right like 50 feet or 100 feet or so above my neighbor's house in the backyard area. And I'm right underneath it now, looking at it and standing there with my phone. So now you see that white dot in the center is the fireball that I was seeing. My phone wasn't good enough. What I was seeing in person was much more reddish, almost like those Chinese lanterns. It was almost like a color like that, like reddish fire, right? But it was moving around intelligent. It was morphing and pulsating and changed colors. And you could see at different times of the video, it actually morphs and pulsates and changes colors. So this is me now with my mobile BlackBerry phone staring up at this dot, and it had no sound whatsoever. Completely no sound.
All right, let's watch.
And you'll see at one point it starts going red. You'll see right over here. Watch. Look at that pulsating red. Did you just see that?
Mm-hmm.
It was pulsating red and moving around. That was the one of the main parts. Then it goes away and then it comes back. And towards the end of the video, it does that again. Did you see how it like pulsated and
Yes.
moved around?
Did you
Yeah,
did you get any
really impressive.
feeling from this UFO? Because sometimes people will feel love while having a sighting.
I felt very calm. See, that's the moon I'm showing in the video. Look, guys, it's not the moon. That's the moon here. I was saying it in the video, and then I go back and show where the ball is again now, the fireball thing. You'll see it comes back down actually.
Well, do you think it is a ship or do you think it's an entity?
I think it's some sort of plasma intelligence that also can morph into ships at times. I think it's something like that. That's some sort of plasma ship. See, look now here it comes again, where I got it into and you'll see at one point it really starts to like pulsate and change. I think it's coming up in a second. Right after this. Right now, you're gonna see it. Watch this shit. Boom! Look at that, pulsating and changing. It was intense, intense. This is over the Haverstraw Bay, over the Hudson River, and these plasma or crafts, whatever you want to call them. They're now over on the Westchester side. I'm standing on the Rockland side of the Hudson River, over the Coquille. It's a Puerto Rican restaurant in the Haverstraw Bay right there. It's called Coquille. It's like the name of the Puerto Rican frog. So there's a restaurant right there on the Hudson River. I was standing above the restaurant on the street, so you'll hear a lot of people cheering and doing stuff because there was an event going on at their restaurant. It had nothing to do with the sighting behind them. They had no idea that was going on. So when you hear cheering, it had nothing to do with what's going on in the sky. Now you'll see these things are well high above the mountain range, up in the sky, up in there, and they're fireballs moving around intelligently. At one point, there's three of them, and they're in a diagonal formation. So let's watch.
All right.
Right now, you'll see there's two of them. One is like the bigger one on the right is pretty much stationary, but the one on the left starts really moving around.
And do you think the crowd down there was completely unaware of this?
Their backs were to it. This was on the other side of the river. They weren't looking. I was above them on the street. They were underneath a tent in like an area. Yeah, they had no idea. Now see, there's three of them right there. Look at them.
Whoa, there's
At
three
first,
of
I was like, could these be Chinese lanterns? But I'm like, no way. They're all the way up above. Look at on the bottom where the mountain range is. It's high up. And look at they're moving around, Jeff. Look at them.
Yeah.
They're circling each other. The one big one is the main one. That's staying stationary. I thought, is that Venus? I thought at first, the big one. I was like, what the hell? But no, I mean, they're moving around all over. Those are not Chinese lanterns. They don't go, I move my phone a different way so I can get them in the whole screen like that. But I mean, they were moving around all over, and I stayed there a while. I only kept it going for like 2 minutes, but I was watching these for over 15 minutes. And during those 15 minutes, I wouldn't say it was any type of telepathic connection to me, but it was like I was going through some sort of life review or something. Like it really was an interesting moment for me, where I thought like there was a lot of things going through my mind. And I gotta say, my research drastically changed after these events. I didn't correlate it at the time, but I think something was impulsed to me and guided me to get into plasma physics and to start decoding some of the ancient writings that I've been decoding. I've actually been translating symbols that scholars have been arguing about for hundreds and hundreds of years, like the Ankh symbol. I do believe it now is the coronal mass ejection loop. I might have mentioned it on the last show. But I've been decoding symbols like this ever since these experiences. I do think that this plasma intelligence impulsed something to me without me even being aware of it at the time.
Your channel is called Exploring the Ka with Ra Castaldo. What is the Ka?
Ka is in Egyptian is the spiritual being, the spiritual side of who we are.
All right. I didn't know that.
In the shortest form.
What is the name of your website?
TheMysticalSpiralStore.com. I also own the domain for TheMysticalSpiral.com, but I merged it all now to TheMysticalSpiralStore.com. I also have a Patreon, patreon.com/TheMysticalSpiral. I did a radio show for years on Truth Frequency Radio as well, but Truth Frequency Radio closed down now. So, but I do a podcast on YouTube called the Space Water Podcast. It's on my Exploring the channel, and I also have a second channel on YouTube. My Exploring the Ka channel, it's almost at 10K. I got like 9.96K or something like that. I would like to get to 10K by my birthday, July 12th. Would be cool. But I have a second channel also, The Mystical Spiral, Copper and Gemstones. It's got a little over 1,000 subscribers now. I just started it. So I like to build that as well. So that has all my products on that channel as well. So you guys can find me there. Pretty much the Mystical Spiral across the board. Patreon.com/TheMysticalSpiral and TheMysticalSpiralStore.com.
Are you also on Facebook?
Yeah, I'm at Facebook, Ra Castaldo,
All right, cool. Well, do you have
and
anything?
Instagram, and Instagram.
And Instagram. Well,
Yeah.
before we wrap it up, can you leave us with a last positive message?
Well, right now we are getting bombarded with all sorts of solar waves, right? The sun is purifying the planet right now. Right now in 2025, this is the first wave of the next 300 years of purification of solar light. Many people believe that we ended the Kali Yuga on March 21st, 2025, right? And that this is going to be the great summer of purification. The summer
Sorry to interrupt you. What is the Kali Yuga?
we in Vedic and Hinduism, they have cycles where the earth and the universe and the solar system goes through various cycles. These cycles run sometimes 25,000 years a cycle, right? So the Kali Yuga is one of those cycles, right? So we supposedly just finished, some people think that we finished this Kali Yuga cycle in March 21st. Now, when a Kali Yuga ends, there's great destruction and purification and chaos as the new world emerges into the new cycle. So many people believe this cycle just ended in March 21st, 2025, and now we're entering into this great summer of purification starting in 2025. Now, ironically, Alice Bailey, who was a mystic from the 1930s, right? She was famous in like the 20s, 30s, 40s. Alice Bailey, she came out of Theosophy. She has a lot of books. You guys can get her books from the Lucis Trust. This book, this is one of her books, Externalization of the Hierarchy. She wrote this in 1939. She talked about in the year 2025, there will be an externalization of a celestial hierarchy, right? You can go to page 530 in Alice Bailey's book.
What does that
And
mean, an externalization? Does that
yeah,
mean,
so
is it possible that those orbs that you saw is what she's talking about?
it's quite possible. That's where I was getting at. So an externalization that she's talking about is a celestial hierarchy that was previously hidden that's now going to reveal itself. It's something's when going to externalize, it's going to reveal itself. It's going to come out. It's going to reveal from being hidden and now appear. It's going to externalize, right? So she's talking now about a celestial hierarchy of light that's going to appear and externalize in the year 2025, right? And this will be the first externalization of the hierarchy. It's going to start in this year. And she wrote that back in the 1930s. And I find it very interesting that we're going through this. Now, the sun is going through incredible. You can even see the coronal holes on the sun. It looks like a face. It looks like a face, literally an expression. The eyes, nose, mouth. The sun is speaking. It's about to purify the earth, right? It's about to purify us with light and fire.
I don't know if you saw all the traffic with the New Jersey drones at the beginning of the year and the end of last year, but do you think that could have been part of this celestial hierarchy that she
It's
wrote
quite
about?
possibly. I think it's about beings of light that once were here long ago. That's going to appear once again, right? And it's going to be about a purification of this planet. And the good part of what I'm saying here is that we need this, right? It's very important what's in your thoughts and prayers during this time, right? If you have the vibration of greed and materialism pulsating out of you, this is what you're going to be evolved into, right? But if you have ultimately a cleansing for the collective consciousness, and ultimately you want to harmonically evolve and have a spiritual evolution and move to a higher vibration out of this dense slime that we're stuck in, right? Then that has to be in your thoughts and prayers. You have to have that vibration coming out of you. The sun, the light that touches us, that we absorb from the sun, it collects our feelings and it pulsates the appropriate light back down us to evolve us accordingly. We get evolved according to our own vibration, right? So if we have a materialistic vibration, this is what we're going to be evolved into, a materialistic, greedy beast, right? But we need to break that curse. And the only way we do it is by cleansing to collective consciousness. While these solar waves are coming over us, we literally can make it like a global DMT wave of higher light, like a global DMT awakening.
Ra, thank you for your message, and thank you for being my guest again.
Thank you, Jeff. I really appreciate it. And spiral out.
I like that. Thanks for watching the JeffMara podcast. I really appreciate you. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. And if you do, there are loyalty badges and other perks depending on your level of membership. All you need to do is click the join button underneath the video to find out more. Thank you for your support.